Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to sunny Holmfirth. My name's Colin. I'm going to take you round, show you where they did some of the filming of last at Summer Wine. I shall also be telling you a bit of history of the place as you're going round. I shall be telling you about the floods that we've had in the last few hundred years. That's some really bad floods in Holmfirth. The worst one was in 1852, when the reservoir up the moors burst and flooded the valley. It killed a total of 81 people. And then in 1944 we had a cloud burst which killed 3. If you look over to the right, across the road on the parade of shops, on the end shop, can you see the blue sign on the butcher's window? Actually on the glass. There?
Yeah.
You got it now?
Yeah.
Over here, the parade of shops, the end shop.
Yeah.
On the window is a blue sign. To the left of that sign is a stone plaque built into the wall, and that shows the height of the floodwaters when the reservoir burst.
Yeah.
Straight across the road in front of us is the Kirkwood Hospice shop that's painted white. That used to be a laundrette at one time. That's where Compo and them used to sit in the very early series. If you remember, they were always in and out at laundrette or sat looking out at window. That's where it was filmed. This road we're going along in front of us leads on to Nora Batty's. Used to be the main road through the town at one time. It was a toll road, and it actually went behind these shops on the left, like it was in cart days. All along the right hand side of the road where the cars are parked, there were shops and houses. They all got washed away in the 44 floods. This little lane on the left was one of the first opening scenes of Summer Wine, showing the 3 of them walking down there. And this little book is on the left where Compo were always getting kicked out of. Nora Batty's on the roof, cottages in front of us. It's one with a blue door. Now when they came filming here, they had to take all the signs down. They actually filmed off a platform. You don't normally see that first lot of steps. Just here on the right is the studio of Ashley Jackson, the famous Yorkshire artist. He has a TV programme called A Brush with Ashley. He lives in Holmfirth. Now looking up to the right, amongst the trees up at the top, you can see the tower of the church. That's where Billowing's buried, Compo.
Filming Summer Wine originated in 1972 when the BBC commissioned a one-off comedy playhouse. Our comedy playhouse was shown in January of 1973. Now, as a result of the success of that programme, the BBC also commissioned a series. The first episode was shown in August 1973. And of course we now know that the last episode of Summer Wine was shown in August 2010. Now at 37 years it makes it the longest running television sitcom in the world. But it was Barry Tuck who persuaded the producer to come filming in Holmfirth, as he'd recently done a series himself on the working men's clubs in the north of England, and he saw how beautiful it was in Holmfirth. So it was a result of Barry's recommendation that the filming took place in Holmfirth. It's where they filmed Wesley's Garage and Edie's Cottage. Now if you look at the houses in this village, they do look quite normal at one side. On the other side there can be anything up to 5 stories high. That's due to them being built on a steep hillside. When the reservoir burst, this village took the full force of the floods. Because the valley is very narrow here, there were many lives lost. Although the film Wesley's Garage here, I'm afraid we won't be seeing it, just taking it away. after the death of Gordon Lorman, who played Wesley, but I will show you where it was. They also filmed the cottage of Edith's sister, Ross, played by the actress Dora Bryan. She always wears pink in the programme.
Now we shall shortly be passing Edith's cottage on the left hand side. If you want to take a photograph, have your camera ready, so don't stop outside the house. I respect the residents' privacy. So when I get to the bottom of this slope, if you look up to the right, behind the house on the right, you'll see steps going up to the doors. We've got railings round. The second lot along is where they film Rosa's cottage, just here on the right. The second lot of railings, that's Rosa's. Looking over to the left, you can see the gable end with all the windows in. That's where Wesley's garage was. Edith's cottage is just across the river. It's the one with a little porch in the middle of the road. Number 4, this one with the glass panelled door. This is where she made Wesley walk on newspaper, while all the ladies were sat around having their cups of tea and fighting over queendom.
As you're going around on this tour, you'll notice that the roads get steeper and narrower. You can well imagine when the BBC came filming, there was about 50 crew and up to 35 vehicles, some of them large wagons and caravans. So if they didn't organise it properly, there would have been chaos. What they did, they had a base camp every so far, where they used to leave all the large vehicles. And then they would shuttle the actors backwards and forwards onto the film set.
If you look to the left now, down in the bottom, you can see what I mean about the height of the buildings in this village. You can imagine that torrent of floodwater rushing through there when the reservoir burst. The fields at either side of us were used for doing some of the stunt work. Did that scene here where the three of them were skiing downhill on breakfast trays? They got untied to their feet. And a while back it showed an episode where Howard was sat on the roof of his house. Clegg and them came along, so the ladder and moved it, left Howard stranded on the roof. Well, Howard's cottage is 4 miles away from here. The roof where they actually filmed him is that one in front of us to the left, below one of the 2 houses. When you see Howard's cottage, you'll realise why they filmed it there.
When the BBC came filming, they used to film through the summer. They used to start about May or June. They spent approximately a month each time in the area. They would go back to the studios for a month, come back here again. They would piece it all together, and you would normally see the new series after the Christmas special. Now when they actually filmed in the cafe, that counter that's in use today was all boarded up. And they brought Ivy's counter forward from the left-hand side, took all the tables out, bar 3, and used a wide-angle lens. It did actually look a bit bigger on TV. Now where you saw Ivy putting her head through the arch and shouting, that was filmed in the studio, because at the back of that hatch in the cafe is a brick wall.
Now looking out to the right on that hillside, that's where you quite often find the 3 of them, late sunbathing in the heather. It's up there where the little quarry is. You often see them walking round. Just coming up here on the left, we have one of the many lanes that are used in this area for filming. This one in particular, you've seen nearly every episode. You'll see them walking down there. And that's where you got Howard and Marine over the wall. Pretty cool. Right on top of them were that Saddleworth moors. That's where Brady and Hindley, the Moors murderers, buried the children. About 1,000 foot above sea level. We're only 1,800 foot below the flight path for Manchester Airport, which explains the tyre marks on the roof. Looking over to the left in the distance, you can see a tower on a hill. That's called Castle Hill. It overlooks Huddersfield. The tower is a 100-foot high stone tower built to commemorate Queen Victoria's down in Jubilee. There's always been a castle or a keep on that hill, but right back to the Iron Age, 2,000 years BC. Looking over to the right across the valley, about halfway up that hillside, there are some stone-built houses on a housing estate. It's where Barry and Glenda live in the programme. On this road, the double scenes with the motor vehicles. This is where you got Wesley in his Land Rover, or Reedy in a car, crunching the gears and creating havoc. Where you find the two bobbies sat in the police car. Now if you look through this gate on the right, this first house with the glass porch is Foggy's. With Howard and Marina on the push bikes. You may recall one episode where they joined the cycling club. Could have been a couple from Pearl. All the cyclists came down this little track on the left, crashed in a heap on road here, with Howard and Marina underneath them all. In a more recent episode it showed Howard and Marina coming out at fields on the push bikes, down this track here. About this point they came across a double-decker bus and the road alongside it. Unbeknown to them, Pearl was on the top deck watching them. Looking over to the right across the valley at about the 1 o'clock position, there's a single-storey building with a white sign on it. That's the rugby club that they used in the programme Where the Heart Is. That was filmed round here. One of the actresses in that programme, Leslie Dunlop, she liked it so much round here she bought a house, come to live here. Now in the last series of Summer Wine, in one episode, the two bobbies blew the police car up. What happened was they got a chip fryer in the car, fancied a bag of chips while they were on duty. When they plugged the machine into the dashboard and it blew the car up. This is where it was filmed by this bench. It's where they blew the car up. That's a little bench that you often found Compo and them sat on, looking over the valley. large mill in the bottom is called Washpit Mills. He used to be one of the main employees in this area at one time. That was before the decline of the textile industry. But at one time of the day there's a number of small mills in this valley. Most of them have shut down, being turned into houses or apartments. The valley was chosen for the textile industry for its humidity. They needed the humidity to stop the fibres from breaking when they were spinning the wool. This little mill on the right is quite well known for its quality hand-knitted wools. It's called Rowan Yarns. Look over this wall to the left, you can see some down mills that's been converted.
Often said how much he liked Holmfirth and how he'd like to live here. Well, he got his dying wish by being buried. Well, Bill was actually born and brought up in London, and he still lived in London up to his death. Although a lot of people thought he was a Yorkshireman, they thought he lived in Holmfirth. He didn't. What he did, when they were here filming, he used to rent a house. That house is just on the hillside in front of us, just behind the tall chimney. Now, although Bill was classed as the star of the show, he very nearly didn't get the job. Because in the early days when they were casting for it, Roy Clark didn't think he would be able to master the Yorkshire dialect. He soon proved him wrong.
That's the original compo there, see? So just here on the left you'll see a little wooden chalet type house. That's where Billy used to stay when he was here filming. Now, in the last episode that featured the comedians, Cannon and Ball, Bobby Ball was all tied up. He was playing at being Houdini, and his wife kicked him out at the house. She'd had enough of his silly antics. It was his hen house here on the left. She locked him in the garden of the shop.
Skulls. It's where the entertainer Roy Castle was born. Roy was born in a little back-to-back terrace cottage. His mother was an hairdresser, his father an insurance man, and his grandfather was the village barber. His daughter, Antonia, she worked on the summer wine production team.
Looking over to the left on the horizon, you can see a large tower. That's Henley Moore television transmitter. Built of concrete, it was built in the 1970s to replace a metal one that collapsed. The metal one collapsed due to the weight of ice on the support cables. When they built this new one, it went into the record books for being the tallest freestanding structure in Britain. It's under 1,100 foot high. It's more than twice the height of Blackpool Tower. And it is a listed building. Well, you've all got your passports ready. Look on the garden wall to the left. Right, that Roy Castle attended. Did quite a lot of filming around this little garden on the right. Those bushes at the back is where you'd often find Clegham appearing from. It's where you find Howard and Marina disappearing too. Where the steps are on the right, that's where you'd often find the Chinaman Entwistle parked there in his little red truck.
Down to the left in the bottom, you can see a pretty little church.
Not just yet, quite often in the programme we saw the three of them waiting to catch a bus. 9 times out of 10 it would have been filmed on this road. What they did, they hired an normal service bus, they brought their own bus stop route. Looking over to the left on that hillside, they did quite a lot of filming up there. They did that episode once where Barry was carried away on a giant kite. And the one with a large hot air balloon shaped like a big fat lady, he came up from behind the brow of the hill. But a while back it showed an episode where Auntie Wainwright brought some coffins at an auction. And the lads made a trolley out of one of them. But at some point during the day it ran away from them. And if you look on that hill to the left, about halfway up it, just above the trees, you can see a lane going across at an angle. And that's where Howard and Marina were walking when the runaway coffin came flying down the hill and nearly ran them over. Just beyond the brow of that hill lives the international show jumper John Whittaker, has his farm and stables up there.
Looking down to the left in the bottom, you can see a pretty little church. That's used for filming quite often. It featured in Uncle of the Bride, Barry and Glenda's wedding. And it was in the Millennium Special, when Dora Bryan first came into the series. Now in that programme it showed Edie sat in a wheelchair, putting flowers on her mother's grave. It was the first time that they'd actually filmed her in the wheelchair, although there had been bringing her on set in one for the past few years. She was very bad on the legs. At the latter end, whenever you saw her walking or driving the car, you were actually looking at a double, because Thora Hird only did the close-ups in the studios. And if you thought you could really see her driving, she was actually sat in a car on a trailer, being towed by a Land Rover.
Used to do his own stunts at one time until the latter end. One of the more memorable was in an episode, First Stop That Bath, where they were running away downhill, bathtub. This is where it was filmed. And this is where Barry and Glenda were married.
Yeah.
Did quite a lot of filming in this village. With lots of narrow roads and lanes that they used. But it was in the 1600s, most of the inhabitants of this village were wiped out with the plague, which came up from London in a bundle of flea-infested clothing. This is a village where the lad comes from that's been murdered in Australia. If you remember, the young English couple who were touring the outback in a camper van and they got kidnapped. The girl managed to escape and the lad's been shot. Never found his body. This estate on the right is where it comes from. Beautiful country. Now coming into the village of Jackson Bridge. This is where the summer wine pub is, the White Horse. Howard and Pearl's Cottage and Cleggs. Better view of it shortly. The cottages of Howard and Pearl and Clegg, behind the pub up at the top where those cars are parked. Clegg's is one with a cream coloured door in the middle of the road. Howard and Pearl's to the right of it. You will notice there are 3-storey weavers' cottages. You don't normally see the top floor of the programme. We're ready to show that. You can see now why when they filmed Howard sat on the roof they chose that smaller cottage. Weavers' cottages, they have lots of narrow windows close together. That was to let maximum light in when they were doing the handloom weaving upstairs. But when Clegg comes out of his door and turns left, he walks on that lane. He ends up at Nora Batty's, 4 miles away. Bit of summer wine mansion. So as I turn this next corner, if you look down to the left, you'll get a good view of the front of the pub and the cottages. When you see the pub on telly, you don't realise there's a road in front of it. When the US film combo and then sat outside at the tables, actually filmed them across the road in the car park. Made it look like one big yard in front. On the left is a lane that goes up to the cottages. That's where you find Pearl, chasing Howard down there. Now the actress who plays Pearl, Julia Kaplan, she plays a bit of a dragon. But in real life she's quite nice. She's quite attractive. But she has a wicked sense of humour. Go round the next corner past the block of apartments. If you look up to the left just after the apartments, you will see a row of cottages. The third house along that row is where Roy Castle was born. Just here on the left it's a sandlot of railings along.
Now, as I said earlier, when they came filming, they spent approximately a month each time in the area. The actors normally stayed in one of the hotels in Huddersfield, but the crew would stay locally in bed and breakfast. Some went in boarding houses and some rented cottages, and they mixed quite well with the locals. If you think about it, some of us have been coming here for quite a number of years. They worked 6 days a week when they were here, Saturday being their only day off. Quite often on a Saturday afternoon, you would have seen Bill Owen walking round Holmfirth doing his shopping. And the amusing thing about that was, you get hundreds of people walk past him and nobody recognised him, because in real life he was quite a dapper little gentleman. Now some of the crew started work at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and they could go through till 7 or 8 at night some days. Out of a full day's filming, you'll be very lucky if you got 5 or 10 minutes viewing time. It's a lot of hard work to do.
With a garden shed on, where the repo man was chasing after him for money. And this is the village where the actress Leslie Dunlop come to live. She played the nurse in Where the Heart Is. She's now in Emmerdale. She plays Brenda in the cafe. The block.
I briefly mentioned Bamforth postcards earlier on. Bamforth postcards are the comic postcards that you get at the seaside. They've been made in Holmfirth for well over 100 years, up until quite recently. It was in the late 1800s that James Bamforth developed the magic lantern, and from that he became one of the leading pioneers of silent movie making. long before the days of Charlie Chaplin. And it was only the start of the First World War that put an end to filming in Holmfirth. That's when the Americans came along. They developed the idea further. However, James Bamforth produced the world's very first edited film. Called The Kiss in the Tunnel, it was made in 1899, and it depicted a young couple sharing a lingering embrace while their train rumbled through a tunnel. It was filmed on the Worth Valley Railway at Ingro near Keighley, West Yorkshire. So you see, if it hadn't been for the First World War, things round here might have been different. This might have been Britain's answer to Hollywood. Who knows? This village we're coming into is called Wooldale. It's got nothing to do with sheep. It gets its name from the valley down to the right. Many years ago, when that was all covered in forest, it was called the Valley of the Wolves, and the village was actually called Wolfdale. But over the years it has gradually altered to Wooldale. Now there was a small pub in this village called the Bay Horse, and it's where the Luddites used to meet in secret during the Industrial Revolution. They used to meet here to plan the attacks on the mills in the area.
Just along this road on the left, past the co-op, you can see the cottage. That was the Bay Horse. You can still see the old pub signs on the corner of the building.
You may be wondering where Auntie Wainwright's shop is. Auntie Wainwright's is 8 miles away. It's in a place called Marsden. Now you may be lucky enough to find Marsden, but it's unlikely that you'll find the shop, because it is actually somebody's house. It's no longer a shop. When they went filming, they had to dress it up and put a false front on, and it took them 2 to 3 days to set it all up. They used to have a security guard on overnight, guarding Auntie Wainwright's junk outside. Marsden is where the health centre is for the programme Where the Heart Is. Wine on telly, but you thought it was always sunny in Holmfirth. Well, I can assure you, when they came filming, it nearly always rained. But it didn't stop them, because rain doesn't show on camera, unless it's absolutely throwing it down. So with those big arc lights that they brought with them, it did look sunny. Next time you watch it, just look on the floor and see how many puddles you can see. You'll be surprised.
Well, if you've enjoyed this tour and you want to take a piece of it home with you, you can do. It's out on DVD. Not only does it show the tour, it shows them filming at the places that we visit. It also shows them setting Auntie Wainwright's up. You do got to look behind the scenes of filming Summer Wine. I have some here if you want. There's a large building built of red brick. That was Bamforth Postcards Factory. They've recently been bought out, moved to Scarborough. Where you can see a smaller building this side of it, that was the studios. That's where they used to paint the postcards and make the silent movies. To the right, behind these buildings, down in the bottom is the co-op. That's where you find Marina working behind the till. Passing love messages to Howard. At the far end of the co-op car park in the bottom is a small Methodist chapel. That's the building they use for the library in the programme. As we come back into Holmfirth, on the right hand side is the cinema, which was built in 1912, especially for James Bamforth to show his silent movies. That would have been one of the first cinemas. Well, I hope you've enjoyed a little taste of summer wine. You see it next on TV now. You'll say, I know it can all up there.